Welcome to another episode of Art and Prayer. I am Reverend Rob McPherson. Today we will pray using Friedrich Wasmann's A Vineyard in Merano. Timothy Verdon, in his book Art and Prayer, The Beauty of Turning to God, has this to say about the painting. A crucifix erected beside a country lane invites wayfarers to associate the fatigue of travel, the toil of labor, and the beauty of the mountains with the mystery of Christ who suffered, died, and rose. A youthful work of the artist born in 1805, this painting suggests that the convulsions of the Napoleonic Wars and the early Industrial Revolution had created a nostalgia for a simpler and more peaceful way of life. In fact, 19th century Romanticism often treats the theme of rural religiosity with evident regret for the passing of a world in which prayer was natural. Verdon's quote suggests several directions our prayers could go. As I list these, perhaps one of them will catch your attention and will spark the direction of your prayers today. I hear in Verdon's words the following potential prayer themes: the connection between Christ's suffering and our own, or our desire for a more natural prayer life, or a desire to be aware of the things in the world around us that point us to God, or whether the world around us has distracted us from the life God wants for us. Does one of those seem right for you today? If not, perhaps this will help. Although these approaches sound quite different, they all center on one thing: that we not only listen to God, but we allow what God is telling us to become evident in our lives. With that in mind, we center ourselves with one of Jesus' simple and rural-themed parables. Listen now to Matthew chapter 21, verses 28 through 31, just the beginning. Jesus said, "What do you think? There was a landowner who had 2 children. The landowner approached the elder and said, 'My child, go out and work in the vineyard today.' The first child replied, 'No, I won't,' but afterwards regretted it and went. The landowner then came to the second child and said the same thing. The second child said in reply, 'I'm on my way,' but never went. Which of the 2 did what was wanted?" What is Jesus trying to tell you? Let's look at the painting. Let your eyes wander around the entire canvas. Remember those potential prayer themes that Verdun suggested? As you look at this painting, what is stirring in your soul? Look for a moment at the right side of the painting. A man stands under a crucifix. Imagine he is the landowner in the parable, and you are one of his children. As you approach, he beckons and asks you to work in the vineyard. What is the vineyard in your life that God is asking you to work in? Are you initially excited or hesitant to take on this work? As you consider your initial reaction, let us return to the scripture for a moment. How does it speak to your reaction? Jesus said, "What do you think? There was a landowner who had 2 children. The landowner approached the elder and said, 'My child, go out and work in the vineyard today.' The first child replied, 'No, I won't,' but afterwards regretted it and went. The landowner then came to the second child and said the same thing. The second child said in reply, 'I'm on my way,' but never went. Which of the 2 did what was wanted?" " Which of the two children do you most relate to right now? Let us look back at the painting. Is there anything in the painting that speaks to your thoughts and feelings right now? The first child reminds us that we might initially say yes, but that things might interfere with our commitment to God. What might get in the way of your doing what God is asking you today? How might you overcome those obstacles? The second child reminds us that our initial hesitations may not be enough to stop us from doing what God wants. We may be able to do what God wants despite our hesitations. What hesitations do you have in doing what God is asking you today? What would help you set aside those hesitations? Allow God to speak through your inmost thoughts about all that you have contemplated so far. Pick one thing from the painting to remind you of what God has spoken to you. Hold on to that image and the conversation, that it may continue to motivate you as you follow Christ. And finish up your time of prayer. My dad and I were recently talking about one of my chores as a teen, working in the garden. We even tended a couple of rows of grapevines for a few years. We had homemade grape juice from those vines, from the grapes. It was hard work. My siblings and I never really liked the hard work, and we almost always tried to make excuses to avoid it. Like the parable, sometimes we went despite our complaints, and at other times we promised we would go and work, but we found something more fun to do instead. As I look at the painting and I contemplate God's leading in my life, I am left wondering how things would be different if we never did the work. And I wonder how things would be different if we all did the work. God is beckoning, calling us to work. And I believe that you have the ability to follow through on what God has asked of you. Be brave, my friends. You can see the complete list of episodes at artandprayer.org, and I hope you will share this video with someone else that you think would be interested in deepening their prayer life. Until next week, Be blessed.